It was some kind of strange phenomenon, rather a miracle. It is unclear from where and for what reason white wolves began to appear in our forests. They were not albinos, they had a rather dark gray undercoat, but the main coat was completely white. How beautiful it looked on the run, when the wool shimmered in the wind currents. How do we know? Yes, we've all seen it. When these wolves appeared, they did not hide from people, but they did not attack either. The wolves settled near the village, set up a lair in a natural cave under a small rock and just began to live. At first, all the villagers were alarmed. Wolves, wolves, we have to do something. But the noble animals were not going to attack. They behaved calmly, did not show any aggression. And when a stray cow was brought out of the forest, which everyone had long considered eaten, the villagers were simply stunned. 3 large males accompanied the uncomprehending cow all the way to the village, 2 from the sides and 1 drove the calf from behind. Everyone who saw it just dropped their jaws. The wolves came very close to the village itself, stood for a while, making sure that the cow went in the right direction, and jogged back into the forest. The sight was simply unforgettable. Since then, the wolves have been protecting the villagers. That I do not know how we deserved such honors from wild predators, and thank God that there was not a single hunter in our village, neither professional nor amateur. And in general, no one even had a gun. Even the ice road station was quite far from our village. Wolves always accompanied a lone traveler from village to village. If people rode on a cart, on a bicycle or by car, which is rare in our area, wolves almost never appeared. But it was worth walking, as you could see out of the corner of your eye an unobtrusive, neat white guide, like an angel, walking behind you. It was winter when these wolves appeared. At first, everyone thought that the unusual color would pass in the spring. However, even in summer, the wolves continued to remain snow-white. Were they related to each other? It's hard to say. Maybe they had some kind of common ancestor. It is difficult to say what kind of genetic mutation affected the animals in such a way. The change in the genetic code has changed not only the fur and habits of these animals. They had such amazing bright blue eyes. Even the famous husky's eyes were not so bright. Some of the residents saw something mystical in the behavior and appearance of the wolves and, certainly, in their unexpected appearance. Other people claimed that they were not wolves at all, but feral dogs, or at least wolves crossed by dogs, which explained their appearance and behavior. When these wolves appeared in the village, I was still very young, but I remember them clearly. Every time the children went to the forest to pick berries or mushrooms, the wolves guarded us. Again, very unobtrusively, being constantly at a distance, they calmly moved from place to place behind us and escorted us all the way to the village. No one was worried about the wolves' food. There was a lot of hoofed game in our forests. Wild boars, moose. Very rarely we even came across roe deer. So the wolves were fed up and did not touch people. One day, such a strange thing happened to me. I was about 6. I hadn't gone to school yet, but I already considered myself a completely grown-up and independent person. Now I don't even remember what took me into the forest alone. It's unlikely for snowdrops. I knew that in summer they are no longer there. Maybe for lilies of the valley, or maybe even for mushrooms or berries. The root cause was not important. The important thing was that I was alone in the forest. Berry after berry, flower after flower, mushroom and all, there are trees all around, all the same, and which way to go? Naturally, I started crying. What's the use? No one hears or sees. Or almost no one. A snow-white muzzle immediately appeared from the bushes and stared at me with its angelic eyes. The animal crouched down next to me and was tearing salty tears from my cheek. I smiled. It was ticklish. It turned out to be a she-wolf, though I did not immediately guess, but only later. After all, they were wolves. Tracks like wolves, body structure, narrow muzzles, slanted eyes. They were very big. Maybe because they were white, that's why they seemed bigger. I, a 6-year-old girl, was quite tall for my age, but when the wolf was sitting next to me, her head was bigger than mine, and she had to bend down to lick my tears. Then the animal pulled me along. I wasn't afraid to follow her at all. Maybe they possessed some kind of telepathy or could inspire people with calmness and lack of fear. The she-wolf led me to her lair. This was not the lair they had settled in, but another, new one. Everyone knew where the old lair was. I could have run home from him in a heartbeat. It was a new place that I squeezed through a narrow passage and found myself in a spacious cave. There was no utter darkness, from which a soft, even light came. There were cubs inside, small, still blind. I knew well that wolves breed in early spring, but now it was summer. I remember exactly what happened in the summer. Or still in the spring. And yet I ended up in the forest in search of snowdrops. I do not remember. It's a pity that I don't remember everything so well that I sat down next to him and began stroking the cubs. They were so cute, so pretty. I just wanted to squeak with delight. That's how I knew it was a she-wolf. She didn't mind me touching her children. I don't remember how many there were, maybe 5 or maybe 7, but I definitely remember that there were quite a few. It became clear that the pack was going to split into 2. For some reason, the wolf brought me to meet her children. Maybe she wanted them to know the smell of a person from childhood, or I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. Soon it got dark. The wolf lay down next to us and let me snuggle up to her to keep warm. In the morning she took me out of the forest and took me to the village. Of course, everyone was already going crazy there, but they were wildly glad to see me. Mom later told me that she was sure that the wolves would save me. After the wolf brought me out like that cow, my mother jokingly called me a cow for a long time on occasion. When I became a teenager, my mother stopped joking like that, because I had already learned to be offended and even at my mother. Time passed, and suddenly someone began to exterminate our wolves. Some kind of creature, a vile reptile, shot our guardian angels, our defenders. They definitely weren't locals. But someone, apparently, somewhere told about such a miracle. And there were people who just wanted to exterminate. They were simply shot and not even taken with them. I remember when I came across a young wolf. It was obvious from everything that she had children. Little snow-white cubs, but the mother will not be able to do anything for them anymore. The poor thing was breathing heavily and trying to get up. The injury was too terrible. I will never forget her darting, detached gaze. I rushed to her in an attempt to help or at least alleviate her suffering. By chance our eyes met, then some kind of vision came over me. I realized that the last thoughts of the dying wolf were only about her babies, about her children. I looked into those sky-blue eyes, my heart was just bursting with horror, pain, and powerlessness. And suddenly I clearly saw the place where her cubs were. It was the same place where I spent the night as a child. The wolf, of course, was not the one. And not even one of those puppies that I cuddled. Too much time has passed. Perhaps the predator who saved me and brought me home was the great-grandmother or even the great-great-grandmother of this poor thing. At that very second, the blue eyes, the most beautiful I had ever seen in my life, stopped forever. They were glazed over and couldn't see anything anymore. It was necessary to act and make a decision with lightning speed. I found the exact place, only closer to night. It was already dark. Climbing inside, I found 5 snow-white puppies. They were bigger than the ones I saw when I was a kid. Huddled together, the kids curiously watched who had come to them and where their mother was. Bursting into tears, I lay down next to them, scooped them up in a pile and closed my eyes. The cubs began to lick my tears, like their great-grandmother once did. We all fell asleep together. In the morning, I already knew what to do. That night completely turned my life around. Now I knew what I was going to do, who I was going to be, and who I was going to dedicate my life to. Having built something like a bag out of my jacket, I put the snow-white cubs there and carried them home. No one saw me bring them to my place. The villages knew that wolves were being hunted, everyone was outraged to the core, but no one could figure out who started this massacre. I didn't want anyone to know about the cubs. There's no telling how it would have ended that I kept them at home for a while, but in the fall the question practically came up. We have a loan from my grandfather, quite far away in the taiga. I didn't know where it was, I'd been there once, but I decided to take a chance. After collecting the cubs, I set off. For more than a year we lived with them on a loan. As a wolf, I had to train them to hunt, hide, and get along with each other. Then I let them go. When I returned home, I cried for a long time. As it turned out, all the wolves were just mercilessly exterminated. Reassuring me, my grandmother said that she had guessed for a long time. After all, man is such a beast that come down to us, angels from heaven, sooner or later we will either dissect them or shoot them. Unfortunately, there was more grief than comfort in her words. I received 2 degrees, a biologist and a veterinarian. I got married successfully, and I had a wonderful daughter. Recently, we walked through the forest with her, and I told her a story about snow-white and blue-eyed angels who came down to us from heaven in the guise of wolves. Suddenly, something rustled in the bushes next to us. With a sinking heart, my daughter and I stared in that direction. A strange thought suddenly flashed through my mind. A hare jumped out of the bushes and ran headlong along the edge of the forest. My daughter and I exhaled and watched as he threw back his hind legs. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed that a snow-white silhouette with berries-like blue eyes was watching the hare from the bushes with us. He just didn't want to scare the child, my child. And that's why I let Cassova go. The wolves are back, the white wolves, my pack is alive. That's such a touching story. And thank you for listening to the end. Don't forget to subscribe and like, and also click on the bell so that you don't miss new videos. Have a nice day.